But understanding where we came from helps me understand what's going on. So that what if I'm behaving like I was taught to behave? What if the rules of my family have something to do with this, which you all know I think it does. There's even verses that talk about, the curses of our fathers, and it goes down through generations. And here's a genogram, which I've talked about for weeks. And it's just, I'm not going to go through this much. I'm just going to show it to you. Later, maybe in a few weeks, I'll give it out as a homework assignment, something for you to fill out. But there's a couple of things that I want to point out just in general as we go through. So this is about Jim and Mary. Okay, let's look at Mary's grandparents up here. She was abused by her husband. So he was verbally and physically abusive. If you follow that down, she was abused probably by her father. Okay, and I'm not going to get too deep. I'm just going to show you a trend that I think is kind of interesting. So some of her attributes are she's a disciplinarian, she's angry, she's very busy. Maybe she's busy to keep from thinking about the pain. Maybe she's busy doing something that makes her feel valuable, because being abused and hurt like that, it's hard to find value when you've been so devalued. So let's take it on down to Mary, who's got a lot of dad stuff. Dad's loving and dependable and supportive and assertive and calm, but his father was rigid, had affairs, was an alcoholic. So what you see, two different things going on. Under Mary's side, this generation is doing what that generation did. Does that make sense? If dad's abusive, son's abusive, daughter's, that kind of thing. So Mary has a lot of mom's characteristics who she got from her family. Dad is more reactive. He's going the other direction. So Dad's dad was so Mary's grandfather was rigid, had affairs, and was an alcoholic. So Mary's dad maybe is a child of an alcoholic. So what he's going is, I don't ever want to be like that. I want to be different than that. He did this, he did that, maybe a codependent, maybe not, maybe just I don't want to do that. So he's loving, dependable, supportive, assertive, and calm. You see the difference. You see how this plays out. And in any family of origin thing, when we look at genogram, any of this can go different directions. You'll see generations skipped where there's abuse and there's passivity, and then there's abuse and then there's passivity, and each is reacting. Okay, I'll never do that. Well, I'll never do that. My kids, that kind of all or nothing thinking is pretty typical for us to do. Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, what she's saying is, if you go far enough back, you may see what really started the trend. Yeah, and what's interesting is that it doesn't determine how we turn out. It's just an influence. It's what we learned. I'm sorry, I'm taking this part. It's our normal, and so we have to recognize. If we recognize this, we can go, I don't want to do that to my children. I mean, I want to stop it now. That's one of the biggest motivators when couples come into counseling. They go, we're kind of messed up. Our parents were really kind of messed up, but we really love our kids, and we really don't want them to be messed up. How do we do this? So I don't care what the motive is to bring someone in to work on their marriage, but you don't have to pass this down. And quite frankly, what's going on between this guy and this guy is, from Mary's grandfather to Mary's dad is a extreme reaction. He's going, I'll never do that. It would be like someone that was raised dirt poor, no shoes, and then they decide my kids I'm going to do better than this, and they rise out of the family and they work and work and work and they become wealthy. And then what does the motto become? My kids are never going to go through what I went through. So they swing some people, not everybody, they swing to the other extreme and spoil their kids. So they really didn't fix much. They just reacted instead of coming to the balance of saying, I don't want to do that. But it's really hard. It's hard to self-regulate when you don't know what you just know. I know I don't want this, and so, but I do. So my kids are going to, or let's say they were beaten as a child. My kids are going to know I love them. That's what this guy's doing. Loving, dependable, supportive, assertive, not aggressive. He's assertive. He's calm. So he's reactive, but he might be more in the middle. I don't know where he is. I made this up last night, so I haven't really fleshed this out yet. But I just wanted to give you an idea of how strong the influences are, and like she was saying, great grandmothers. I don't usually go quite that far back. Although the other day somebody said, "You need to know about my great grandmother," because very similar kind of what you're saying, and all of a sudden it started making sense. It's not that we're going to go back and fix all these people. You're not. But it does help me understand, especially as a counselor, it's a resource. It helps me understand when a couple's in an argument and the guy says something and she really reacts, really sensitive to that, it helps me understand where that sensitivity comes from. It might be that she was beaten. It might be that she was sexually molested or abused when she was a child. Maybe the theme is I'll never be controlled, or I can't trust men, or whatever. And so if we don't understand what's behind it, how can I have compassion for someone that I don't understand where they came from? And so that's when we get into conflict resolution, understanding, I mean, you're going to be asking yourself questions. If you keep coming to class, we're going to go through the sheet. When we get to that place that was self-awareness, there's questions. What am I blaming my partner for? Is there anything from my past that might be exaggerating my reaction to what was done or said? So all of a sudden, we start asking ourselves some pretty difficult questions so that after that break, we can come back with a better heart and actually have a conversation of ownership. Let me own my fear of abandonment. I was afraid of abandonment and betrayal. I went off on you. Will you forgive me? I mean, as opposed to if I just think it's your fault, you got some splaining to do. You know, I'm hurt and this is your fault. I'm ready for my apology. And this opens this up. It doesn't mean if I'm angry with you, it's always me, but there's part of it that's me. There's maybe 90% of it may be me, maybe 10%. Blow the percentages out. If I have 10% ownership, if my wife does 90% of a problem, which you never do, and I'm 10%, but I go off on her and say something verbally hurtful, I need to apologize for that instead of saying, well, and I don't need to apologize and go, okay, I'm sorry. Now let's hear because you've got a lot more to apologize for than I do. That's selfish apology. I'll say I'm sorry because I'm trying to manipulate you into telling me that you're sorry. So I'll own my 10%. Now let's hear your 90. And when we get into this further down the road, it's speaking up for what your part is, because maybe they see your part as 90. You only see it as 10. So I need to apologize, and I may be disappointed that I don't get an apology back, but if I do it to get, and there's strings attached to my apology, not so healthy. You see, does that kind of make sense? Give me a little feedback. What does this mean? What is this stirring up in you?